guess I have an embarrassing story to share. In my background, I spent a little over a decade at Dish Network, the satellite TV video streaming provider, now a wireless provider trying to build a nationwide 5G network. And during my time at Dish Network, I was lucky to be there for a good run and was grateful for how many of my clients would want to have me or members of my HR team. I led headquarters and field HR, among other things, and talent management team. And they want us involved in their business in deep ways. And one great way we had a chance to get involved was staying connected at annual conferences. So one particular key client, the home services team, had an annual strategic planning conference where they'd bring more than 200 regional managers and the executive team together for a few days of business review, strategic planning for the next year, some team building. And I always had a standing spot on the agenda to speak, which was a lot of fun and a great honor. And one year we met at a local hotel here in Denver, and they had hired an external AV professional for lighting, audio, video, who had gotten me outfitted with a lavalier mic in preparation for my speaking slots. And I went to the back of the room, I got mic'd up, and he said, "All right, so I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to mute it until you go on stage." And I said, "That sounds great." So I thought, how much time do I have? He said, "You got about 10 minutes. I went to the back of the room and I thought, well, I'm going to run to the men's room and just, make sure I'm ready. I decided to go there, and I went to the restroom before I went on stage. I was unaware that my microphone was hot while I was standing at the urinal. I got myself all psyched up from my remarks. I went back to the ballroom again. The last speaker, I'm right after the chairman of the company, by the way. So this is unique timing. I walked on stage, and before I got there, one of the VPs, who was a friend of mine, said, "Hey, was that you?" And I said, "What do you mean, was that you?" He laughed at me. He said, "We all heard you." And he gave me a pat on the shoulder and said, "Hey, good luck." I immediately turned bright red. My heart stopped a couple beats. I went on stage. Not everybody knew, but it sure felt like everybody in the room had this interesting smile on their face. So I thought, fake it till you make it. I said, "Hey, everybody, it's great to see you. Thank you for the invitation." So I dove in my presentation, made it as interactive as I could. I felt it went well, and off to an auspicious start, I thought. So I got done. I walked off stage, and the chief operating officer, later the CEO of the company, walked up to me, put his arm around me, and he said, "Hey, thanks for speaking. Great job. Can I give you some advice?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. Hey, next time, make sure your mic is off when you need to go, brother." I said, "That's good advice for life, right?" So anyway, the lesson learned here is make sure your mic is off before you go to the restroom. That could have been worse, but anyway, that one I will never forget.
I'm dying. That's awesome, amazing, and awful all at once. Congratulations. That's pretty good. I feel like though you were a maverick because think about during COVID, the number of people who had stories like that while on Zoom. You did it way before. So you're really just a trendsetter, my friend. Like,
Yes, yes. Go big or go home.
totally. Wow. Hello and welcome to Skilled, the podcast where we speak with remarkable L&D and HR leaders to hear the stories behind the strategies and skills that drive measurable success. I'm Karen Rosenfeld here with Omar Glass, GrowthSpace's CEO, and today's guest is Eric Wohl. Eric brings over 25 years of experience in HR and operations. As a three-time CHRO, he has held leadership roles at companies like PepsiCo, Accenture, Dell, and Dish Network, helping leadership teams and boards navigate today's complex business challenges. I would like to say hello and welcome to Eric. Hi.
Thank you. It's good to see you. I appreciate the invitation.
We're very happy to have you. Yeah. So let's just dive in. I would love to hear one of your success stories. I think everyone has something that they've done in their career that they are, doesn't matter how long ago, to this day, extremely proud of. And I think everyone can learn from others' success. So I would love to hear what story you brought to share.
Yeah, sure. No, I love the question. And it does give you a chance to reflect on successes and setbacks, which, might be a chance to share that as well. But, I think back to my time at Dish Network. We were just talking about my infamous restroom break. I did have other successes other than that. But the reason I joined Dish, this is back in 2008, was the chance to fulfill my dream of building a world-class learning and org development team. And this is, I think, probably the best example of some hard-earned success. And I think back, Omer, to your point about stories, I remember interviewing extensively, and I met the chairman and founder and the founders of the company as a founder-led company. was already about 15 billion in revenue, so quite successful. And Charlie Ergen, who you can read about, was very, very committed to making sure that he could create what he called talent on demand at every level because he had big plans for the company. And he said, what's holding me back is the type of organization I need. And it starts with great people who understand and live the culture of this organization, which you can appreciate is essential to a high performing team. So I remember joining, and my first mandate, other than fixing recruiting, which was a huge burning mess for the company at the time, was to start getting my arms around how do we start to build a thoughtful, integrated um, learning and org development strategy and platform. And when I first joined, they had a very small team of 3 people and a ragtag group of courses like effective communications and Peer Today, Boss Tomorrow, open enrollment. And that was about it. I'll jump to the finish line. Over a 5-year period, my team and I were able to build trust in the strategy and the programs and improve results to grow the team to 25 with 10 award-winning programs and an annual direct and indirect budget of over $15 million. Built with and for the leadership team is really what I'm most proud of. A few details. The first core program that we inherited was an executive high potential program called Climb. So here we'd find high potential senior managers, maybe some new directors, and we wanted to groom them to be really strong leaders, not just proven managers or technical experts in their chosen field. The first thing I did was retire the program because I didn't think it was good enough for the company. I remember going to the chairman saying, I know Climb is the gem of the program, but it's not good. I want your permission to kill it for now. Let me rebuild it from the ground up with your help, and then we'll relaunch it. And he said, I'm glad to hear that. I think it's good, but not great. What are your thoughts? So we spent some time talking about that with the founder of the company. And he said, whatever you need, you have my support, but I have huge expectations. So make sure I stay involved. So I thought, well, you don't often build programs with the chairman of the board, but I appreciated his engagement. We rebuilt it and then we relaunched it, and he insisted on being part of the design process as well as a keynote speaker and faculty member, if you will, which is one of the hallmarks of great programs. The executives don't just sponsor their employees, but they actually attend and they speak themselves. So they teach with you. Um, Other programs we built in thinking holistically about career stages, we built a program
If
called
I
Grow.
may, just
Yeah,
I
Omer.
want to double click on that because I think this is something I see with some of our Fortune 500 customers, but with others I do not see. But I think it's a connecting line between a successful programs that you have a very senior executive sponsor, like someone who is part of the design. The program is connected to a personal interest or a need or a pain of this individual, and they're part of the kickoff. And we did it with like a C-level executives, companies like Microsoft, Stanley Black and Decker, others, and we see the impact is phenomenal. People are excited, people are engaged, and eventually, when you have someone so senior involved, the program is always successful. So I kind of wonder, okay, it's a best practice. You just talked about it. So I think maybe a couple of questions. A, why do you think sometimes it doesn't exist in key programs in organizations? Like, why would you basically start a program without executive sponsorship if it's a significant program? And basically, and the second question is maybe connected to the first one is if you weren't successful in getting this executive sponsorship, because like hopefully you would get some, how would you convince them to kind of like sponsor your program?
Mhm. Yeah, those are great questions, Omer. First of all, I don't think you'd ideally launch a program like this without clear executive sponsorship. But I've been in a variety of organizations, and you have too, where many leaders will say, our people are our most important asset, of course, and I'm committed. The question is the degree of commitment. It's easy to say it, it's much harder to back it up with real, observable, measurable actions. I give credit to the founder of the company, and he said, and I remember a couple times that our calendars didn't line up, and I kicked off waves of the program, and he wasn't able to attend, and he was upset with me. How could you start the program without me? Don't do that again. That's when I knew I had his real commitment, and I said, "Hey, Charlie, I could use your help. I'd like to have your direct reports engaged in the program." He said, "Consider it done." So I appreciated his sponsorship, but I've seen many senior executives who say the right things and are passively supportive. I've met with many of them and I've said, listen, I, in the end, can't care more about your people and their growth than you do. And if you think about our competitive business, the reality is that while we think we've got proprietary products and services, ultimately, what we can build that is truly sustainable competitive advantage is our organization, our people, and our culture. Those can be hard to replicate, and I need your full engagement in that if we want to really move the needle, because other things can be copied and replicated. So I leaned on Charlie in this case to make sure, and it spoke volumes without me having to do a single thing. When Charlie was there and he said, "Where's my team?" If they weren't there, it was really clear. So I'm grateful for that. And I've realized over time that was a gift that's not always so readily available. It was hard. I'll share another quick story about this. Um, Charlie came to me one day and he called me up to his office and he said, "I'm sick and tired of people coming to my office that don't understand three things: our business, our frontline employees, and our customers. And by the way, I feel like they don't really understand the culture of this company I've been building for the last 30 years. I need you to fix that for me." I said, "Okay, Charlie, how much time do I have?" He said, "I'll give you the weekend. I'll see you on Monday morning at 9. I'll give you an extra hour." I remember pulling my team together for a quick huddle saying, "Good news, bad news. The good news is we have an amazing opportunity to help the company. The bad news is it's a very, very difficult ask. Are you ready?" The team was is so excited about it. We spent the weekend brainstorming, building something, an outline we ultimately called Base Camp. In Colorado, there's 52 14ers. Charlie's an avid mountain climber. And we built a program and he said, "Listen, I want it to be long. I want it to be hard. Don't worry about the cost. It's too important." I came back to him Monday morning with an outline that was modeled a little after some best practices I'd seen at, say, Enterprise, where they took fresh college grads and they put them in off airport locations to work the desk, to wash cars, to go ahead and do the most basic and important aspects of what customers need to have happen really well. Not suit and tie headquarters jobs, but get out in the field and learn the business ground up. We came back to the chairman and we presented the program. In the end, I'm most fond of it because it was really an ambitious design. And he was intimately involved in the entire process of 6 pilots before we launched it. The end program was 22 days long, including 2 Saturdays. It involved a cohort of 20 going through. Everybody from frontline accountants to senior VPs and EVPs were expected to go through the program while doing your day job. So think about taking a month out to do the program while being the CMO or the CEO. We had 1 week in headquarters, covering headquarters and all the various teams, and sales. 2 weeks in the call centers, taking calls for Dish Network and Sling calls, basic sales and customer service calls. Then 1 week in uniform in the field with some in-home services technicians. Obviously, we didn't want them climbing ladders and hanging out on roofs, but for safety purposes. But the goal was to teach them again, appreciate the face, the voice, the hands of the company, learn the business from the ground up, not in your job, but from a customer perspective, and then learn about the culture in a really intense way. We've had over 1,500 grads that went through it in my tenure and 2,500 since. The proof was in the pudding in the end in terms of impact, in that Basecamp won the prestigious Chairman's Award for the single largest company contribution in that year. And the reason the chairman chose that program in my team, which was a real thrill, was Dish won their first of 6 consecutive JD Powers and ASCI customer satisfaction awards the year after Basecamp launched. And he said, in a nutshell, "I can't think of a single thing that's had more of a transformative effect of teaching people the business, appreciation for our frontline employees, and the culture of this company from a customer perspective than Basecamp." And it was a really honor to win it. And we went on to feature in a variety of conferences and Sherman ATD awards. But I think about the connection between people strategy and business strategy, and that's one that I really appreciate.
Wow. So first of all, you got me inspired, and I want to do the same with the growth space.
Sorry, Karen.
I think I'm going to be working the weekend. That's all I just heard.
Yeah, so I think that's the second thing I like about it, but I never heard of it. Like I heard of it, I never heard of it in recent years. I think it's brilliant. Like really connecting people to the actual job of like other people, because sometimes it's so disconnected and they maybe work together, but they don't understand what it's like, right? Like people complain about finance, but they don't understand just the work of finance and like operations and so forth. So Karen, I think you need to work the ground and go work with all of our functions now. But I think even better, even more inspiring than the programs that I think it's brilliant. Like it's spot on. And I recommend all of our listeners to copy you. There is a book I really like, Still Like an Artist, right? That's what we're doing here. We're bringing in super experienced people to share their story so you can steal it and actually like design the best programs more like that. But what I really want to take is I I had this morning a very early call with a European customer, like 5 a.m. Someone brought me into a call, and they're not like let's say 2,000, 3,000 employees, not a huge company, and they're talking about like, yeah, now we're in the process of design. It will be over like in 3 months, and I'm like, you can do things over a weekend if you really want. And I think that's a big thing. The same thing with Karen. We talked with Sarah Tilly from ServiceNow. Hopefully, this episode will be released after that. And she told us like they changed their whole performance evaluation in ServiceNow in like 3 months, right? And I think the speed is something that really lacks in organizations and the ability. And I know it was a very senior ask, it was a challenging thing, but you can do everything basically over a weekend. Do not over engineer it. It's not a PhD, just do it. Like the action is more important than planning. And usually, probably you did 80% right? And that's, I think, the bottom line. So I think, yeah, both elements are super inspiring. So, Karen, I think we can wrap up. We got our three insights for today.
No, but I
No,
mean,
just
look,
kidding.
the whole idea of like being able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, I think that's brilliant because the truth is, if you don't know what someone's up against on a day-to-day basis, you won't know why they're so upset when you make a comment about this, that, and the other. So I think that, especially from a culture perspective, and we've touched on the culture conversation before, I think that has a huge impact where there's an empathy and an understanding across the board of what the different roles entail. I think that speaks volumes about the culture that was trying to be implemented. So I think that's amazing.
Yeah. One last point on this to put a fine point on your thought here. Each cohort of 20 went to a graduation ceremony. In that graduation ceremony, each graduate had to speak to what key takeaway are you bringing with you back to your day job as you go back to headquarters. This was focused on headquarters employees. Two things happened. One is many of them shared really interesting epiphanies of, oh my gosh, if I'd only known that my thoughtful approach for X, Y, or Z makes no sense when I think about frontline employees and customers, here's what I'm going to change. That was huge. And secondly, each graduating class made a recommendations of business process improvement ideas, which we documented and captured, vetted with the senior team and the project management office, and implemented dozens of them, generating millions in revenue increases and cost reductions because they were just smarter about the business. So we ended up, designing it in a lean Six Sigma black belt fashion to make sure that the best ideas were harnessed and implemented to improve the business, not just a feel good graduation ceremony, which it was.
That's incredible. And especially because, in the end of the day, you're showing that it has so much tangible value beyond the like, oh, now I get the culture, right? Now you're actually showing revenue generation. You're showing larger impact as well.
Yeah, I want to thank my team for the great work they did on it. Obviously, I was just fortunate to help support it, but a great accomplishment I'm really proud of today. And the program still exists.
Amazing. Um, we're gonna take a dark turn now. Let's talk about the sort of the dark mirror reflection here. Can you walk us through a sort of less than successful story? But more importantly, let's double click on the lessons learned and what you took away. Because obviously, 3 times CHRO, you learned a thing or two along the way. So what did not go your way?
Yeah, I had a series of choices for this one as well, sadly. But the reality is, over time, if you're going to take big risks, you're going to make some mistakes. I think the key is how you respond to them. And if you haven't made any mistakes in your career, I don't think you've been pushing hard enough. The moral of this one is go slow to go fast. I joined as chief HR officer, the first CHRO of a third-party logistics e-commerce company based in Philadelphia. I interviewed just as COVID became a thing. I remember interviewing virtually. I made it into Philadelphia to meet the CEO in person and some of his leadership team. And then the next week, headquarters shut down and all air travel was canceled. And I never, ever made it in to meet my team or go back to headquarters again because this was March of 2020. So, as their first chief HR officer, I put a lot of pressure on myself to try and set a high standard, develop this thoughtful 3-year rolling strategic plan about the business and people as COVID was hitting the world. And this is a company formulated to do pick, pack, and ship of orders for retailers who were hard hit when their brick and mortar locations shut down. So here's a business that has the potential to explode in a positive way during COVID, where many companies were hard hit in epic ways. I've tried to immerse myself in the business as quickly as I can, get some quick wins. And in this case, I had, again, the good fortune of a company that was growing really rapidly, but I didn't have the good fortune of time to onboard. Within my first month, the company started scaling by 20,000 employees for seasonal distribution employees across their almost 20 fulfillment centers domestically in the United States. And my mistake was trying to build that strategy far faster than maybe I should have. I put a lot of pressure on myself to have that strategy done in the first 90 days. And what I realized is, in retrospect, I needed to take some pressure off myself, learn the business better, build closer collaborative relationships and trust. I was the first externally hired chief HR officer to a team that I think, to the credit, just needed more time to get comfortable with me and my background and style. I got the team together. We developed a plan. What I didn't read well enough was the body language and insights in the room around, hey, I probably need to go a little slower. So I pushed a little too hard, too fast. And, the lesson learned was, in the end, the support for the plan wasn't as strong as it could have been. And consequently, there was resistance. We didn't execute as well. And I take that go slow to go fast lesson with me. My next chief HR officer job, I took a lot more time to drive significant change with the function and how we showed up as a team. But the difference was in the how I went about it, not so much the end plan. The plan structurally still made a lot of sense, but getting the team inspired to really lean in, think bigger about what and how we could take big shots and how we'd measure those business impacts was critical. But I just slowed down a little bit, and it made all the difference watching members of my HR team really thrive and grow. And the function's in much better shape because of that. And that was a painful lesson learned about pacing yourself.
Actually, I don't think it's about pacing. I don't think it's about going slow because the previous example was an exact example of going fast. But the only difference is the buy-in. That's what you're talking about here. It's the buy-in because when you start, you and people do not get it. People come, and I think I'm included. I worked as a management consultant, and the feedback I got in the first year is like, you're very smart, you're a great analyst, but the hard job that we're doing here is not to get to the right solution, but to get the customers buying into your solution. So I knew how to like do the right analysis to get the right recommendation, but without basically convincing the customer that it will almost become their solution, you cannot win. So I think that's the insight here, is that whatever you do, and especially when you're new, you're onboarding, you need to get the buy-in. And it's funny. I will connect to your first story. And one of my sales leaders once told me that I need, kind of like when dogs are doing their thing on the street, I need everyone to pee on my plan a little bit. So it's also there. I don't know if it's an appropriate example, but I really liked it because you need to make it like theirs, and you need to get their buy-in. Without buy-in, you cannot win in our business, and it's connected to, again, getting like an executive sponsorship. It's basically the same thing from the
Yeah.
other side of the coin. So brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, no, well said, Omer. I agree. In the end, yeah, I think buy-in can create massive amounts of innovation and agility. Every leader wants that from his or her team. This secret sauce of getting real buy-in is the game changer. And I think it's based on building trust, right? Especially if it comes from the outside. And, I think that's the heart of what I'm trying to do differently now.
All right. Speaking of lessons learned, looking back now, what advice would you give to yourself when you were first starting out in your as a CHRO, and what skills would you have told yourself to focus on?
Yeah, I like that question. Having done it a few times, and really this applies to I think anybody who has big aspirations for their career. In my case, there were three things that I think, in hindsight, seem so clear. But the first is you got to believe in yourself. Don't be arrogant. Um, be careful about your intent and the approaches you take, but believe in yourself. This inner confidence without being arrogant is really important because you're going to be tested every day and you're not going to have everybody love everything you say or do. You want to be absorbent and reflective, but that inner belief is a big part of that confidence to lead at times of big change. Sometimes before you have all that buy-in, as you're saying, Omer, you've got to lead in a way that has people feeling inspired, not just because of charisma, but because of the quality of the ideas you develop together. Second, like you said, is get buy-in. There's a lot of pressure we all feel when you first land in a leadership role. You don't have to have all the ideas, but you need to have everybody align and commit in what and how you're going to do it. And I feel like a big part of that is being crystal clear about the playbook, not just tactics, but measures and targets. Make the connection for people so they understand their role and make sure they feel recognized and rewarded for their work. Everybody values that. And I think that is such a common sense dimension that's overlooked. Um, and that I think makes a big difference around followership. And then last is really more of a personal thing. I think we all take business so seriously, of course, right? You're affecting people's lives, you're affecting many, many clients in significant ways. But for me, I think I've just been learning not to take myself so seriously. We're all human. We're going to make mistakes. Be patient and compassionate with yourself and others to the extent you can. You can be hard driving of yourself and really inspire and push a team, but it's about how you recover with humility and grace. And I have not seen enough leaders in my experience, and I do a lot of executive coaching now, is enough of that emotional maturity to be humble and curious, poke a little fun at yourself, and just be a learner versus a knower. So I try and do that with myself. Unless you're in certain fields, say in healthcare, maybe defense, you're not in life and death situations. So even though business often takes themselves so incredibly serious, laugh a little, laugh at yourself first and foremost. And I think work becomes more fun. People see the humanity in you. And to your point, Amir, I think they're more likely to develop trust and buy in as a result of just how you lead. My thoughts.
Brilliant. Nothing to add. Mic dropped. No, no, it was a great, I think, great episode, great insights. Yeah, one, I'm inspired personally.
Well, thank you, Amir. So nice to spend time with you. Thank you, Karen.